So picking up right where we left off in the last video, we looked over functions, operators, Boolean operators, strings, variables, types, and if statements. So now we'll get into while loops, for loops, arrays, and some of the rest of this. So let's jump into the while loops example, and I'm going to take a look at the source code here, and that's going to be right here. It's pretty straightforward. We're going to output 0 through 10 for using this while loop, and we will then use this next while loop to kind of count backwards again using a little bit of a, we're going to basically, as long as it's I is greater than 2, we're going to divide by 2. So we're going to, start with 10 and then go to 5, and then otherwise we're going to subtract 2. So if we look at this and we click the button, you're going to see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is kind of, or 0 up to 9, which we're going to expect. And then in that second loop, we're going to go 10, 5, 2.5, 1.25, and that'll be it. And if we look at that, that's going to kind of follow what we expect. 0 through 9 are going to be printed here, and then 10, 5, 2.5, and 1.25 are going to be printed here. So pretty basic example there. If we go back to our for loops, we're going to see we have a similar button to click here. If we click for loops, we'll see some output based on our for loops. And if we look at the for loops code, we're going to output 0 through 1, or 0 through 900 or 90. So 0, then 10, 20, 30, 40, so on. So you can kind of see that up to here. Then we're going to print out from 50 to 100 by 5. So here you'll see 50, 55, 60, so on up to 95. And then we'll show how you can use words, like a string to actually iterate here. So we're going to go from 0 up to all of the words, or all of the letters in length, and then we're going to use words. And you can kind of see how we're doing a little hack. We're kind of using the index, and we're using the link. We're using the string literal like a string variable, but that's okay. You can do that in JavaScript, and you can see what this will output: WORDS, each one in uppercase, just like we expect. So moving on to arrays, and we'll take a look at our arrays function, and we've got some arrays here. And then we are going to add some different, we're going to create an array, and we're going to output that, and then we're going to create a list of values here, and we're going to push these each one into the array. Then we're going to output that array, and then here we're going to create the same thing for numbers. We'll just create this number array, and then we're going to put values 0, 100, 200, 300, so on, so up to 900. And then we can kind of see how some of these slices will work. So let's go ahead and click that button so we can see that output. And you can see there's our array, there's the second array. Here you see the 0, 100, 200, 300, and then here are our slices. So 300, so you can see these two slices. That first one is 300, 400, and if we see, that's going to be starting at element 3 up to element 5, but not including 5. And then slice 3 is going to work just like substring for 3 if we were treating this array like a string. So it will show us 300 all the way up to the end of the array. So there you go. There's your arrays example. Then we will look at our maps. So maps examples. So here we have one with objects as maps, and here we're just going to create a states object, and we're going to make its properties, each one of these state codes, and each one of those values is going to be a particular state name. And you can see how we use this, and this will allow us to, we get the in keyword, so you can kind of see how we can use, and then we have a for in loop, so you can see how we can use this sort of iteratively like it might be a map itself. So if we click on that, it's going to do the things we expect. Here's our map, or here's our object, and then we're going to output that object again after we adjust a couple of things and add in Connecticut. So you can see here, there's those values, and then we can see the in. So is New York there? Yes, it is. But the value, this in works on the keys, not on the values. So this one will be false. And then we can output each one of these one by one by using the for in loop. And the for in loop just allows us to iterate over each property in that particular object. Now, this will work, and we use this in JavaScript for a really long time, but they did introduce maps several years ago, and maps are probably a better way to accomplish this type of functionality. So if we click maps, we're going to see very similar output. It's going to behave just about the exact same way. It's just that now we are going to, there's one important difference to note here. Here you can see that we are going to add this property, what we're doing now is adding a property to the map, but not actually adding the key and value to the map. So this doesn't work. JavaScript's a little loose with some of the checking that it does. And you can see this actually doesn't give you an error anywhere, but we'll see Connecticut is missing from this particular map. So we set these values just like we would with a very similar to what we would do with a Java map. Here it's set instead of add, but that's okay. That's just one minor API difference. And you can see this doesn't do what we want. That property will be set, but it won't actually be a key of your map. And you can see we can't use in, we have to use has. And if we look at the results there, we'll see false and true because this will return false, this will return true. So we have to use this has keyword or method name instead of using the in keyword. And now we can use this, we can do this iteration a little bit differently. We have to get the keys and we're going to iterate through those, and we're going to use a get method to actually access them. So it does change the way you operate these things a little bit, but not in a crazy way. It basically just allows you to be a little bit more efficient and deliberate about the way that you are doing this map storage and lookup. All right, so let's take a look at our objects example now. We have two different methods or two different buttons for objects, and if we look at our code for what the objects looks like, we're going to have objects1 and objects2, so nothing too complicated there. So objects1 is going to allow us to create this person object that we've defined in the function format here, and you can see we're populating a property called first name and populating a property called last name, and then we're creating two methods, so you can see how all of that works. And if we click objects, there we go. That works pretty much as you would expect, but this is using this particular approach. So here you can see we're going to embed this particular object now into this objects2 function, which is okay to do. And you can see we're going to do a little bit of a different thing here. We're going to create these as an array. We're going to store these, and here we're going to use some instance of to see actually what happens if we use this sort of in the Java way. So you can see this is actually going to work in the hierarchy as we would expect. So the instance of object, well, this will be true, and we can even see that this is now an instance of pet. So we can use that instance of kind of similarly to what we might use in Java, and that'll allow us to kind of identify what these different objects are. This is a basic way to create objects and classes. There's a lot of different ways in JavaScript now. Most commonly you'll probably just create objects on the fly, but sometimes you'll have a reason to create more defined objects, and you can use this, or you can use that class format that we discussed in some of those slides. Now let's take a look at these dates. We'll take a look at the dates, and then we'll take a look at some of these other JavaScript functionalities in the next video. So in the dates page, we just are calling that function, nothing too complicated. And here we're going to output dates. Now, if we now one thing that you'll notice is when we run this, you'll get these outputs, but it's sometimes better to just use a toString or to a local or locale string, so that you can kind of see a better output than this, because here you can see you've got a lot of information, and it's kind of a long particular date. But you've got other options here, like you can do toLocale string, and if we save this, refresh the page, and click that, you can kind of see how that's a little bit different, a little bit more brief, a little bit more, something that you might expect to see, well, at least in the United States, it's pretty common format. So this covers a lot of our different examples, but we'll come back and we'll look at some of these other things that we can do with JavaScript. Thanks for watching.